In this class, I've said if you have two equations, there will be two unknowns. That would be particle equilibrium. Then I said if you had three equations, there will be three unknowns. That was 2D particle equilibrium or 2D rigid body equilibrium. And just now, if you had six equations, there would be six unknowns. Therefore, you could solve the problems. I promise for this class, you will always be able to solve the problems. There will be the right number of equations and unknowns to match each other. But let's talk about when that's not true for future courses. Let's just review the basics about solving simultaneous equations. You have unknowns, x, y, z, and you'll have equations like 2x plus 3y plus 4z equals 10. There are three possibilities. You could have more unknowns than equations. There are an infinite number of solutions. You cannot solve it. What you could do, let's say you had four unknowns and three equations. You take the fourth unknown and just make up any number, and then you could solve for the other three. If you have more equations than unknowns, it's unstable. You can't even solve it. You need more unknowns. And then finally, if the unknowns equals the equations, this is like Goldilocks. So you have too many unknowns, not enough unknowns, and in this case, it's just right. You can solve it. This is called determinant. Okay? Determinant. Determinant. You can determine it. It's determinant. You can solve it. So let's apply this to statics. Usually, the unknowns are reactions, okay? And you have only a certain amount of equations. You have two equations if it's concurrent 2D, three equations if it's concurrent 3D, three equations if it's rigid body 2D, remember some fx, some fy, some moment 0, and six equations for rigid body 3D, okay? If you have more unknowns than equations, it's statically indeterminate, means you cannot solve it using this class, statics. You'll have to wait to mechanics of materials. If there are more equations than unknowns, it's unstable. There's not enough reactions to keep the thing from moving. And if the unknowns equals the reactions, equations, it's just right. You can solve it. That's this course. Okay? So you need to remember this when you go on from this course into mechanics of materials.